question number 3. Should USER pay all of its staff a living wage of £7.20 an hour?
Okay, is there anyone to take the speech as part of the Yes campaign for that?
Either or.
So the living wage is part of a national campaign up and down the country to make work pay. Because there are thousands of people in our country currently at the moment who aren't paid enough to support their families and lead a fulfilling life. So I think that USER is primarily a campaigning organisation should really full-heartedly throw support behind this campaign. And the best way to do that is to actually pay our own staff a living wage. And I think they would set a great example to the local community if they did that. But this is also about students directly as well, because many students rely on us for so many different reasons, and ethical employment should be one of those reasons. So many students need to work in order to afford their living costs while they're at university. And I think that USER is the first port of call for many of those students. So a fair wage should actually be something that we should implement so that they don't have to sacrifice too much of their study time in order to have financial stability. Because at the moment, on the rate that they're currently paid, the amount of hours that they have to work, it would take away from their study time. And I don't think we're saying with this, there's been a lot of concerns about kind of, would this be dangerous to USER's financial stability? This referendum question isn't saying that we should implement it so soon that USER's own financial stability would be sacrificed. What we want is a firm commitment that this is a priority for USER and that it will be implemented sooner rather than later. Because I think the living wage is gathering momentum up and down the country and in the student body. And I think it would actually be quite embarrassing for us if we hadn't implemented it for our workers in the future. So I think we are an ethical union, obviously, and we make ethical investments every day. We mandate our students' union to make ethical investments, and that's a fantastic thing. And I don't think that there's many better that we can do than investing in our own workers and paying them a wage which would actually help them lead a fulfilling life and support their families, and also be able to afford their living costs if they're a student. Okay. So, yeah.
Is there anyone to speak as part of the No campaign? Is that you, Philippa?
No, it's not.
Just checking. Okay, we'll move straight on to questions. Are there any questions?
Hi, yeah, I used to work for USER about a year ago or so, and when I worked there was a lot of talk about the living wage campaign, and I think it was a good principle, and I would like to have seen it while I was working there and back now. But I was regularly informed that when I was inquired about it, that USER had policies on this. USER was aiming to go for a living wage, but nothing ever happened about it. No increase was ever made. So what difference would this actually make? What I'm asking is, what makes you think that this will actually change the situation? That USER will now actually really push towards a living wage? Because it's a bit of a bone of contention. Also, a supplementary question, when it says all of its staff, does it mean like all of its staff £7.20 an hour? Because I think that would be
What was the last point you made?
I'm saying should USER pay all of its staff, like everyone who works for USER should earn £7.20 an hour?
You split it between
Chief
everyone.
Executive. Chief Executive as well, because I'd be well behind that. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I suppose actually there is a subtlety implied in the word working that it says at least. That it's supposed to be more at least. But that's a conversation that we could have at a later date. We do already have policy, obviously student council policy or whatever, supporting living wage. But obviously in the last, as you've rightly pointed out, nothing's happened. So I think as a student body we can't just say, well, policy's passed, nothing's happened, let's just leave it there. I think this should come back again and again and again if there's no firm commitment. And I think it goes back to what I'm saying about there needs to be now a firm commitment for it. And the reason why I brought it to the referendum question is, it's part of the new constitution that online referendum is supposed to be making our union more representative. And I think this would have, particularly if it was Quora, really strong power in actually saying to the trustees, you know, this is what students want. Because I think if they continue to ignore it, that it should come back again and again and again, because the issues are still there, isn't it?
Okay.
This is again about the practicalities. Just out of interest, actually, is this including holiday pay for staff, or is that added on extra?
I don't think. I mean, because you've spoken to me about this before, Max. I think it's kind of. I think it would be just we'd work that out at the time. The reality is that at the moment, the actual basic hourly pay is below £7.20, and that's what this question is addressing. So I think that's the bottom line of it. Essentially, is that the hourly pay should go up above, well, to at least £7.20.
Question up there. There's one more there.
Obviously, it's great that student unions would be taking the lead on this, but would that mean if this did go through and was implemented, that jobs would become more competitive than they are just now, and many students who currently work in our bars might lose out to a job as they've never worked in a bar before to someone who has a lot of bar experience who might not be a student?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think overall that we should maintain a commitment to essentially employing students. I think that's a fantastic thing. So what we should focus on more is the idea that, like I said, currently students paying their living costs is not high enough. So if it did become a problem, then there should be more policy to essentially that we should pass to stop that from happening. But that doesn't deflect from the issue that is too late at the moment. So.
There's a question down here.
I just wanted to clarify why it's £7.20 and would it rise with inflation over time? £7.20 seems on the surface a bit of a random number, so why is it being chosen? And then obviously as inflation goes, the £7.20 is effectively worth less, so would it rise with inflation as well?
Yeah, it would rise with inflation, and it's calculated by the Centre for Social Policy Research, which is basically calculated for, I think it's something like a single parent with 2 kids, or maybe, yeah, I think it's a single parent with 2 kids, how they would actually be best able to support that family. That's how it's calculated at £7.20.
Any more questions?
Just to clarify on that, so are you saying that the USO's policy would mandate that it definitely does increase with inflation?
Well, the living wage should, I think, as I said, it's part of the national campaign, so the living wage, it should rise with inflation. But obviously it's not part of the question. I wanted to keep the question as simple as possible. So I think we should focus more on kind of like getting it up to £7.20 now, essentially.
May I make a clarification?
Yeah.
Just to add info to that. Just salaries would be the final decision of the trustee board. Yeah. If the trustee board felt, even if they were mandated to do so through a policy like this, that there should be if they felt that would be damaging for the organisation, it would be illegal for them to vote through and implement that policy. That would be in breach of the Charities and Trustees Act of 2005, and that would be very serious. So it is the decision of the trustee board. Sorry.
Yeah.
Keep it lifted.
I don't know if this is the place to ask this question, but I know there are like some students that work at ESA and some staff that aren't. I'm not sure how this plays into this, and should we be encouraging more students to work at ESA? I just don't know the answer to that.
Sorry, can you just repeat your question?
Sorry, I just wondered, because not all staff that work at ESA are sort of in bars and stuff are students, and I just wondered how that would be addressed, or I just don't really know how people get employed or anything like that. Sorry, this is probably not the time to ask.
Well, it's got both staff. It's got both non-student staff and student staff in mind in terms of policy. So I still don't quite understand your question.
USER is a students' union, the students' union I came from, all students were employed because it was to help students out. So I'm just not sure how staff get hired and how does that come into consideration when you're getting a job there if you are a student or not, or what is the percentages of people who aren't students who have jobs or
I don't know that information.
I think that's a very broad question that sort of goes beyond the remit of this question here, but is an important discussion I think we should have with.
Just to clarify, it is illegal to discriminate against an applicant for a job on the basis that they're a student.
Okay. Question?
Sorry, the benefit of the microphone is so the camera can hear it, so we're not being too pedantic.
If the £7.20 is calculated on like a single parent with 2 kids, most people presumably don't really have 2 kids. So why do they still need £7.20 now?
Because I think it's just important to make sure that no one falls below the breadline, essentially. In terms of, well, you know, as long as there is a situation where, and I'm sure, I don't know the exact details, but I'm sure there are staff for which there is that consideration. As long as there are people that fall below that line for which they can't lead a fulfilling life and support their families anymore, I think that the minimum wage should come up to account for that, regardless of who else it accidentally benefits as well.
I think this is the last question on this.
Studies show that wages tend to rise much quicker if you're in a union rather than just mandated from on top. So would you, alongside this, support a drive to get the USER staff into proper unions so they can represent themselves?
Yeah, I completely would support that. Yeah.